but I don't feel like me when I'm in front of the camera, like presenting. It feels different than me.
As soon as I look at the camera and try addressing it, just something clicks in my brain, and it's
I'm like, loosen up, be you.
Yeah. Today we're sitting down with Anthony Seratelli. He's a fellow YouTuber who runs JerseyFilmmaker.com. We're going to be talking about what it's like to run your own video production company, how to expand and grow your business, what it's like to run a YouTube channel as well as running your company full-time. All that and more. Join us.
Welcome back to another Get a Grip, and if you're listening to this on iTunes podcast, also try to check out our YouTube page. We finally reached 100 subscribers, so thank you to all of you that have been listening and watching our shows here. Of course, we actually don't know how many of you are listening on iTunes or on Spotify, but if you are, thank you for that. If you haven't listened to the latest episode that was with Tony Gallardo, the previous episode, sorry, check out that. It was very good. We were talking about motion graphics, about Fusion, Motion, After Effects, what you should be using, what are the advantages of each of them. So totally check that out. Subscribe to the channel, like, share. And Gabriel, how have you been in this last week?
As usual, I've been really busy. Last night, as I was falling asleep, though, I was, of course, thinking about video. So I've got this upcoming shoot in Hawaii where I got to record 3 coaches on lavaliers and then have a tentacle sync, which is a time code sync. But it doesn't send time code, it sends an audio signal into the recorder. And as I was falling asleep, I realized, well, the coaches also send that signal to their earbuds with a Bluetooth. So they have to be able to hear things. But then I was like, wait a second. If they're bringing the Zoom F8 to Hawaii, we can't have the coaches hear the tentacle sync signal. Oh my God, I need to figure out how to route the headphones properly. And then the first thing I did was I picked up my phone in bed and I went to Curtis Judd's channel. Or rather, I typed in a search for audio routing. First video I got was our 2 guests ago, Curtis Judd, he had a tutorial on that right away. So thanks to Curtis, I was able to fall asleep peacefully.
That's awesome. And I think we are having some very amazing guests, and it's no different today. We have a very special guest. His name is Anthony Seratelli. The very first time I found him was when I was looking for Red Raven on YouTube, because that was when Apple had done the deal with Red, and they're the only ones selling this kit from the Red Raven. And there it was, Anthony Seratelli with his Road to Red series, and it was definitely super interesting. Hey, Anthony, how are you?
Great, I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thank you for joining us. And so for those who don't know you, and they should know you already, so if you don't know him, go check out his YouTube channel. There will be a link below there. Anthony, who are you? Where are you coming from? What you doing?
I'm from New Jersey, born and raised, and my company / my alter ego is Jersey Filmmaker. But no, that is my company name, but I guess I get referred to as the Jersey Filmmaker once in a while. So I kind of like that, and that's a little bit what I was going for with that name. But everything you'll find from me online is Jersey Filmmaker. That's what I do as my company. That's what I do as YouTube and podcasting as well. Everything goes through Jersey Filmmaker, and that's all I'm about nowadays, is making films and videos for work and or pleasure, and trying to just make a career out of this.
How long ago did you start your company? How long?
The company, so I actually started my company in 2000, I want to say 12 or 13, I forget exactly. So I had a prior career, and I played baseball professionally. So that was a 10-year career out of college. I played for the Kansas City Royals, the New York Mets, and I played a year over in Japan as well. So that was my full-time job. This kind of became a hobby only about a year or two into my baseball career. So for 8+ years of baseball, I was toying with filmmaking and just making videos with my teammates. I have World Series champions and All-Star Game MVPs and just lots of big leaguers in my videos where I'm just goofing off and trying to learn filmmaking. It actually started mostly with visual effects. I got into visual effects early, and I would think of one or I'd see one, and I'd want to figure it out. So I'd create a little story around it and make a little sketch with my teammates. And that's how it started. And everyone wanted to get in on it because it was fun stuff, and no one else really did that in baseball. So anyway, that was a good chunk of my career in my downtime. You know, a lot of guys in baseball will play video games a lot. Some maybe play an instrument. Very few read a book. But I tried to make movies, and that was what I did in my downtime. And I knew that was going to be my next career once I got into that. So baseball, I knew wasn't going to last forever. And I just kind of started plotting and getting this all going. But back to when I started my company was still during my baseball career. And I just did some work in the off season. I think, like I said, 2000, I'd have to actually look it up to see the paperwork, but somewhere in the 2012-13 area. And then I took on filmmaking full time in 2015-16 when I retired. So this is only I'm not even 3 full years in full time into filmmaking, but I've obviously been studying this for 12 whatever years. So then I think Jersey Filmmaker came about only about a year and a half ago now. My original company name was ARS1 Productions, which is my initials and my number that I wore in college. My buddies and I, we used to call each other by our initials, and ARS, and I wore the number 1. So ARS1 came about because, and nobody ever picks up on this, and this is why I had to change my company name, but ARS1 is supposed to sound like KRS1, which is an old school hip hop group. And if you heard the song, you'd probably know it. Yes, yes, y'all, we don't stop. KRS1, rock on. Like, a lot of people, maybe at least here in America, would know it. But nobody picked up on that. They didn't, like, ARS1, KRS1 did not click. So I was like, you know what? This has to change. Nobody's gonna know what that means. No one can remember it. Everyone's like, how's that AR1, AS, that's how they would try to figure out my company name. So I was like, this is not going to work. So I went to Jersey Filmmaker last year, and I'm very happy with that. It was actually one of the first ones I thought of, and it was available on everything. URL, Instagram, Twitter, which nowadays is like impossible to find something that's available everywhere. Snagged it all, and here I am.
So if you're like the Jersey Filmmaker, does this mean you've eliminated all the other Jersey filmmakers?
I'd like to think so, yes.
They all they had an accident.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of thing we do here in Jersey. You know, there might have been an accident. You know, have some friends that take care of things per se. No,
okay.
I'm just playing. That's what I get. That I get that quite a bit. Do you know Tony Soprano? Do you know Snooki? That's the other question. Do you know Snooki? It's like, no, I don't know Snooki, but it's I love Jersey, being from here and born and raised here, and I'm right across the water from New York, so I get to be in the city quite a bit and do a lot of work there. So this is home to me. I've been a lot of other places that are beautiful as well, but this is home.
And what kind of work do you do? What sort of clients do you have?
Man, so at this point, I don't have a niche or niche, however you like to say it. And I've been told, I haven't been told, but I've learned that a lot of people do. To become super successful, you generally have some sort of alley that you work in. You stay in your lane kind of thing, right? I have a problem with that. I don't like that. I don't like being sucked into one thing. Even as a baseball player, I was a utility guy. I didn't play one position. I played 7. I switch hit. You know, that's just my mentality. I like to do a lot of things. I learned this stuff while I was playing. I can shoot, I can edit, I can direct, I can produce. I have to, for one, because as a one-man band early on, you had to. But I like all that. And one of the reasons I wanted to start a production company was because then I could then choose what I want to do with each project, right? If I wanted to shoot this one, I could. If I wanted to edit this one, I could, which I've learned I don't like editing all that much anymore. But I get to push that out a little bit more so nowadays. But, that's all starting to come together. But my idea was I want to be able to shoot the projects I want to. I want to be able to direct the projects I want to. And I'm still trying to work there because I still have to shoot more than I might want to. I still have to edit more than I might want to sometimes. But that's part of the process. So, that's why I wanted to start a company. I actually don't know why I started this thought. I lost my train of thought here, where we started with that, but that's where I'm at right now with me building my career.
Well, I had so many other puns to say before, but it went so fast that I was going to call you Seratelli-san, and then I was going to ask if you learned Japanese.
I did learn enough while I was there to get by and like, you know, give the taxi driver directions if I was in a taxi or order some food. I forget most of it already. I had a translator all the time with me because we had to communicate with our teammates, so they supply a translator because we can't not communicate on the field. We have to be able to figure out how to do our jobs. So if I needed something off the field, I'd just call him up, and he was like, you know, he's like 26. I was 32 at the time. So we were, you know, we hung out quite a bit, you know, so that was unfortunate in a way because I didn't learn as much as I wanted to, because I could just turn to him to figure it out. And it's a really hard language to learn. It's not like Spanish or some of the other ones that are kind of a lot closer to English. So I didn't learn as much as I would have liked. But I did at the time, but I didn't retain anything. But they did call me Telly. So my nickname in baseball was Telly, Seratelli. And they can't say L's there very well, so they would call me, it sounded more like Terry. And of course the san was at the end, so I was Terry-san. Teddy. It was more like Teddy-san. Teddy. Like it was like a ri. It wasn't an R, it wasn't an L, it was like Teddy-san. So yeah, I was Teddy-san. Yeah.
That's amazing. Hold on, you said that you were interested in video. You said that you knew that this would be the next career after you left baseball.
Yes.
But why? I mean, I just want to understand that, because a lot of people, I mean, if you really put a hard thought on it, the amount of investment that you need to do in order to get into this business is like, it's crazy. You buy cameras, you buy lenses, you buy lights, you buy microphones, and then suddenly you have like that $10,000 to $20,000 bill under your belt that you didn't even start making money. Of course, you can rent equipment in the beginning, but a lot of people don't do that.
I have an easy answer to this. I mean, I know exactly why. When I got into it, one of the first videos I did was create a music video for my sister for her graduation, and I had never really done anything like that before. It was just something I thought to do. She kept saying, I don't know if you guys remember the song Soldier Boy, or Crank That by Soldier Boy. It was the one that they did this thing and like jumped around. Anyway, if you know it, you just look it up if you don't know it. But it's these guys jumping around doing a dance. You know, there's dances to all these songs nowadays, but this was back in end of 2007. And she said she was going to have everyone do this dance at her graduation party. I was in Colombia playing ball, the country of Colombia, for winter ball, and she waited to have her graduation party till I got back. So when I got back, I had 4 days before the party, and I was like, man, what am I going to like get her? What am I going to do? And I wanted to do something nice for her. So I was like, she kept talking about the Soldier Boy. So I said, why don't I like go record everyone on my point and shoot and cut them into the music video. I honestly, I cannot tell you what made me decide or think I could do that at the time, because it wasn't something that is like we do. It's not like my everyday job, nowhere near it at that moment. But I did it. I went around for a few days, got everyone on camera, my grandparents, everyone you could think of, cut them all into the video, and I made a nice intro to it, and I showed it at the party. And there were probably, I don't know if there were 100 people there, but it seemed like it was probably, you know, upper 50 and above. It was a good size party at a nice banquet hall, and I show it, and everyone's watching and laughing. And I've seen it now for 4 days, like editing it, which was my first experience with that too. So I didn't watch the video. I watched everyone. And to see people laughing, and my sister was crying, and it was just such a cool moment. And I had no idea at that time that you could affect people like that emotionally with video. And it just captured me from that moment on. Like it wasn't like you're saying, oh, it's going to cost me 10 grand to get started. That wasn't the thought. It was, I love this. This is cool. Let me make some more videos. So I did that while playing baseball. Again, slowly investing, buying a Canon T3i, and then I finally got like a 24 to 105, you know, the classic 24 to 105L series, and just slowly built onto it. I had the worst microphones at first, thinking like, oh man, I need a microphone. I bought the cheapest one I could find. So it wasn't about the money. It was just, I really loved this. And it just built and built over the years. And then thankfully, now you talk about the money, thankfully I had a decent baseball career. And I ended on a high note, making most of my money at the tail end. So, you know, you see all the stuff we're probably going to get into here with Red Raven and Red Weapon. The bigger reason I was able to do that stuff is because of my prior career leading into this. So it wasn't that I made all this money in production that quickly that I was able to do that. It was more of an investment and where I want to go. So we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, that was it. It wasn't a money thing. It was, I just love this. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, before we get into moving from X level gear to Y level gear, you mentioned that when you started, 3 years ago officially, that you were a one-man band. But
Yes.
that implies that you're no longer working solo.
Well,
correct?
technically as a company, yes, I am a sole member LLC. But I do have kind of permalancers now that I work with quite often as producers or editors. I try to edit as little as possible nowadays. It just takes up so much time. I do enjoy the process of editing. I really do. I love what you can do with it and how you can make, from conception to like post, it's just, you can change it completely. And it's really cool that you can shape it so much in the post-production process, but it's just so much time. And as trying to build a company, it eats me up, and I can't do anything when I'm editing. It just takes up too much time. So I'm trying to get that outsourced, quote unquote outsourced, as much as possible. And I do now. So yeah, yes and no. I am still a one-man band, but most of my jobs, I'm now bringing people with me. For the most part, I try not to I try not to go solo as much as I can.
And what happened in your business? Was it just a personal decision, or were you afforded certain opportunities that allowed you to then bring on people?
Yeah, no, I started,
even though they were freelancers.
I started getting more business. That's all it was. Because at first I would never have done that because I would have made no money. So it was just an opportunity-wise as far as gaining clients and making more money and being able to pay people to do that. So it was a little both. One, I couldn't wait to get it off my shoulders, but at the same time, I was able to thankfully make enough money to do so.
Okay.
The first time it actually happened was I was overloaded so badly that I physically did not have the time to finish everything in the amount of time that the deadlines were. So I had to outsource. I had to. There was no other option if I wanted to get it done. So that's how it started.
Gabriel is suffering a little bit with that right now.
Yeah, it's making my eyes twitch a bit just hearing about it. Were you able to write out of the first person you found? Did you find somebody reliable and trustworthy, or did you have to go through a few people before you settled on who you have now?
Yeah, I haven't gone through too many actually, thankfully, and I feel like finding an editor is the hardest position to find, because for them to have your same style and if I'm shooting it, like I know kind of how I want to cut it. Now I have to be able to direct and explain to him, project my thoughts, my vision on that person, and to have someone that's kind of on the same page as you from the get-go is extremely helpful. I went through only like 3 actually till I found one that I really like, and the other ones weren't bad. It was just timing wise, like I just found someone new as time went on, someone else I worked with, and I was like, oh, let me give you a shot. I like how you shoot, maybe because this guy shoots and edits. One of the guys I turn to the most, which is awesome because I can bring him on shoots, so he knows the footage and then he cuts it. So that's actually really helpful if anyone wants to hire out somebody that can kind of be a quote unquote like predator or shooter editor, however you want to call them. If you could find someone that does that, that's actually really helpful, because instead of just sending them a ton of footage that they have to then go through, which will cost you more money, if they know what you shot on the day and were there, it does help them speed through it because they know what happened, So that has helped me a lot.
And is that from a small business one-man band perspective, is that just an individual project's budget determines whether you bring them on, or do you just bring them on because you can now?
Both. At first it was just the project. Now sometimes I will sacrifice money for time. If I have some YouTube episodes I really want to get out, or I'm just behind on some other business things, I'll spend the money on an editor. It's not like I'm not making money. I'm just making less, So sure. I'll sacrifice that to get other things done to move my business forward. So it's a little of both. It depends on the project.
You're busy. Time is super precious. Why did you start doing content for Facebook or for YouTube?
So I started YouTube just over a year ago now, and you guys are actually the first thing I'm doing in over a month. I took August off, and we actually spoke prior to this. We tried to set this up in August, but I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I got to take a break. I went 1 full year on YouTube, and from August 1st to August 1st, and said, you know what, I need a break from YouTube. I didn't do our other podcast either. I didn't do anything. I just had so much going on. I was just mentally a little bit burnt. So I've been doing it a year now, and the reason I got going at the time, business was getting better and doing good enough, but I just felt that I had a lot of recurring clients that I did the same work over and over. A lot of it was internal for corporate stuff, so I wasn't getting anything out there. I couldn't show it, so it's like, I was like, you know what, I want to start connecting with people and just that, same stuff. I'm sure we've all gone through that at some point. And I was like, this is just, I'm not going to grow as much as I'd like to by just doing this same stuff over and over every day. So I'm like, let me put myself out there and see what happens. That's all it was. So it really wasn't gear related. It was more connection related. Like, look what I'm doing now. I'm talking to you guys. On our podcast, we've talked to Ryan Connolly and Caleb Pike, and I am now an ambassador for ICANN and have spoke at NAB. Like, that's all because of YouTube and social media. Like, there's no other reason that happened. Something
I've learned from our show, just in what we've been doing this for 4 months, maybe. We got this will be episode 18. Is with all the guests that we have on, I learn more and more that it's not the camera that makes you, it's not your audio recorder that makes you. It's like, it's just you. And if you are successful, then you can get better gear, whatever. But like, it all comes down to you. And so for me, while it's interesting to learn about camera specs and editing and comparing software and all that stuff, it's just like that constant reminder that it's like, you just need to kind of get off your ass and just get going and working. And what you just said about, because I can identify, and I know Felipe can identify with doing so much work that's for in-house corporate clients that, I might be, I'm pleased with what I delivered to my client, but it's nothing I'll ever put on my portfolio. It's just not that kind of piece. And so you're stuck because that's the stuff paying the bills, but that's not why I was born. That's not why I got into this, is to do stuff that nobody can see. So, and the show has helped me. It's, every episode, I get a little bit more comfortable with the idea of like taking a leap and putting myself out there, that next step.
Well, you're doing it right now.
Well, sure. Thank you. Yeah. And it helps, but I mean, with my work outside of the show, and I'm really, I'm super happy to be able to be a part of this and to be doing this. But I just mean in terms of like the actual videos I'm producing for my clients. And it's something we've touched on in previous episodes, but for you, it was just like, you were just tired of doing the same thing, right? And so what?
Yeah, I got tired of it quickly.
What was that moment that snapped in you where you were like, I got to stop this and just take that next step?
I don't know, man. Even if you go back to, I always think about these things, and I think about how my brain works and try to figure it out sometimes. But I think back to baseball, and if I could dive in even deeper into that and how I got to where I was in baseball. I wasn't drafted out of high school. I wasn't drafted out of college. It was just this like always having to prove myself over and over again. But for some reason, I just had huge goals, and I wanted to get there, and I just went for it. So like, it's the same thing with this. It's like I like big things. I like to think big, I guess, in a way, right? So if it takes me putting myself out there and putting 700 hours a year into it, if you watched my last episode before I took a break,
I did.
If that's what it takes, then that's what I do. I have this weird mental issue. I don't know if it's an issue or not, that I just, if I see something, I'd figure out whatever it takes to get there, I'll do it. And that's why I started it. I was like, I think this will help, so I'm going to do it. I don't care how much time it takes. Although after a year now, I'm reevaluating and wondering how much time I need to put into it still, or should put into it, because I have real work to do as well. And, because the real work builds the business too. So it's not like I just want to take away from that because I have to do work. Like, that's, again, not what I'm made for. But I do want to build a company. I do want to make money. I want to employ other people. I want to have a team. That would be really pleasing to me, to have a family of filmmakers that I can pay, and we can have a career and support each other and make fun stuff. Like, that's more the ultimate goal, I guess.
I think I could speak for Felipe as well, when like we all want exactly that.
Yeah.
And we know how much time it can take every week to put out an episode.
Yeah.
And I think our breakdown is roughly the same as your breakdown. It was on average like 8 hours an episode, maybe. Some episodes take longer, but could take a good hour or two just to film.
Yeah.
And then you've got to share the media and import the media and edit the stuff and do all the graphics and do all the exporting and check for errors. And it's like a good solid at least one full work day that you're sacrificing every week. When I basically work 7 days a week as is. And although with us, I can send, like, for example, the last week's episode, Felipe edited because I was like, I can't possibly handle this. Can you please take it over? And he did. Right. And you don't have anybody you can hand that to, do you? So you're kind of stuck editing your own content.
That's the part that is very good to collaborate with other people. I mean, this show would never exist if it would have been just Gabriel or just me. Right. I don't think we would. I don't think we would even have. I mean, having another person to collaborate with really helps to push you to do it. You know that there is another person that is expecting you to be there. So you really make the time to do those things. I'm not saying that any of us is irresponsible with time or anything like that. I'm just saying that when you don't have to do that, like create this content. For example, in my case, before I had my own company, my company is now just 1 year old. Before I had my company, I was working for 6 years in broadcast and video production, but for corporate. And I was an internal hire. And I have 6 years of high-end broadcast production that's all confidential, 6 years of video production that's all confidential. There's almost nothing that I can share from those 6 years. And when I get to my clients, the clients that I get that really pay are corporate clients that, again, there is nothing that I can share. So doing this really helps.
Let me ask you this. Do you share that stuff with clients, although it's not public? Like, I won't put some things on my website, of course, but I will share some internal stuff just to show them, which I hope no one's listening, but or the corporate people aren't listening. I will show them some things that I think are cool that might relate to that job. It's not like I'm showing everything, but I mean, you have to. It's like, how else are you going to prove yourself, you know?
Well, so in my case, from my previous 6 years, some of the work is public and it's on the YouTube page from the company. So nice. I can link those into my webpage. I don't leave it public. But for example, if someone asks me, can you show an example of the work that you've done before? Yeah, of course. There is this public link from the company that I was working for. While I was there, I directed this, I edited, and so on and so forth. There are these new clients that I had since I left the company and have my own company. So yeah, I have to, because in a way it's your CV, it's your resume. No company in the world has the right to stop you from saying what are your experiences. If you work at Apple with AI, you should be able to say, yes, I was working in AI and I know this, this, and that. Right. You might be saying, oh yeah, so Apple was working on that. Yeah, but that's what you were working on, and if you wanted to get a new job. Of course, there is confidentiality agreement. I'm not breaching any confidentiality agreement with any company. In my contract with my new clients, I have always a clause that I can use the video for my portfolio. So no client so far had any objections to that. Mm-hmm. So it's for me, it has worked out.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, man. That's why I started this YouTube stuff. That way I can create anything I wanted. I really don't want to long term do gear reviews and all focused on I want to do shorts. I want to be more in the Film Riot world where they do sketches and then dive in behind the scenes of it. Like, that's more entertaining to me. Like I said, I used to make these sketches with my teammates. I want to get back to that. Entertaining. You know, I just knew that I can't do that on my own. For one, that's very difficult. And I thought that doing gear reviews, which I do like, I enjoy gear. I'm obviously a gear nut. And I thought that could get a following a little easily to get started. So now I'm a year in, and again, trying to reevaluate how to get to where I'd rather be. But at this point, I still don't have a team around me to do that. So it's going to continue as is. And when I can make that switch, I will. When
it comes to your bird's eye view of your show, are you more concerned with the content or with getting viewers and subscribers?
I'm not overly concerned with either. You know, if I was so concerned about getting followers, I would stop doing everything else, because there's no way you can do that part-time. You know, maybe if I did a couple crazy hit viral videos and it worked like that, but like as a consistent YouTuber, there's no way you're just going to build an audience by doing it twice. I mean, I've done it. I started at twice a week, and I did that for a good amount of time. I did 70 episodes in a year, so more than one a week. It's gotten down to one a week, and I might even cut that back more if I need to. I don't want to, but I might. It's just impossible when you start getting more and more work, which is the goal, to get work. So it's a hard balance, and unless I'm going to stop doing that kind of work and go into YouTube full time, I don't. I wanted at first, like, let's get followers. Like, let's make good content and get followers. Like, was the goal. Like, maybe this could be the job, and that would be fun. But that's not the goal. Like, at this point, it's, again, too much work. It's a different job completely. So at this point, it's just, I want to put up things that I enjoy. It gets me away from the everyday corporate work. It allows me the creative freedom. I could do whatever I want. If I want to do gear reviews, I will. If I wanted to go create a sketch and I had time, I would, and I put it up there. So the idea that it's just a creative outlet is more so what it is for me. So the content is what I focus on, and if the followers come, they come.
For me, it's because of my day job. I almost never collaborate with like fellow industry professionals. It's me and then a client in some different industry. So for me, this right here, what we're doing right now, is my weekly dose of collaborating and interacting with other shooters and editors and producers. So exactly. I need this. Like, I need this dose every week. Otherwise, I start to feel too isolated from everything.
Yep, that's kind of where I was with same thing. It was, I go and I shoot with my clients, I come home and I edit it. And this is before I was even using like an editor. So I might hire a guy or two if I needed to like help me out. But it was me going to work with clients who have nothing to do with filmmaking. And then I come home and edit it, and I was like, this is boring. Like, this is not what it's supposed to be. So that's why I started YouTube and all this stuff. Same thing you're doing. So you're doing the same thing you're thinking and doing the same thing I'm doing, just like 7 months behind.
Okay, so you're saying the goal is to get more clients. So how did YouTube help you so far in this last year? Have you seen your client base increase because of YouTube?
Is there a direct correlation?
I don't see a direct correlation, no. I don't. It's really hard to say that I've gotten many, if any, clients from YouTube. So
no one said, I saw you on YouTube and you do a great work.
I did have one guy approached me, but the job ended up not going through. They didn't like the price, so I was like, all right. But
well, you're a YouTuber. I thought you did for free.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, I haven't had a direct. I can't put a direct number on like how much I've made off YouTube, but like the connections I've made are so much bigger than the work I've gotten. But that could lead to the next person I don't know, team up with to do like $100,000 projects. So like, how can you determine, the kind of work that it's brought? It's really difficult to, because it's not like someone called me and said, hey, I saw you on YouTube, I want to hire you. It's more like, I've maybe they saw me now speak at NAB, and then they want me to shoot with them. And then I make some money off that. So it's like, did I get that from NAB or does that come from YouTube? So it's like, it's really hard to put that number to that, because I probably have gotten work in it's like friend of a friend of a friend type thing, but through YouTube, through a company, through a friend, that's how it goes through that. But yeah, no direct correlation to YouTube got work. It's more of a.
Well, if it wasn't for YouTube, we wouldn't be talking right now.
Right.
I wouldn't have heard of you. You certainly wouldn't have heard of me. Right. And one of the things I like about your channel, which is something that I was very clear about with our channel, is like, I don't want to be a character.
Yeah.
I just want to be me. And we can be goofy if we're goofy. We can be serious if we're serious. But like, I don't want to jump up and be like, hey, welcome. I just wanted to do. And you're just like, the person I'm talking to now is the same guy I see on your episodes. And that's what I like.
Great, yeah.
It's just,
good.
I feel like, yeah. So
I can't Peter McKinnon it. I can't be that hyper. It's weird because I feel like when I present on YouTube that I am very, I don't feel like me. I'd be me, but I don't feel like me when I'm in front of the camera, like presenting. It feels different than me. But when I watch it back, I'm like, okay, that's pretty much me. But it feels different.
Well, right now you're looking at a screen. You're looking at a screen so you can see us as I'm looking at your faces. But as soon as I look at the camera and try addressing it, it's
so different.
Something clicks in my brain, and it's a different.
I'm
different
like,
thing.
Man, all right, I'm like, loosen up, be you. But like then I watch it back and it's just fine. But like when I actually stare into the camera and do it, it's like I don't feel like me.
You're self-conscious. You're just self-conscious.
Yeah, I mean, I know what it's going to come out like at this point, so it's not like I'm like nervous or worried about it, but it just, like you're saying, I'm glad you see it that way because it doesn't feel like that when you're physically doing it. For anyone who doesn't know and hasn't sat in front of a camera by yourself, like it's an odd feeling, it's not scary or weird. I shouldn't say it's not weird. It is weird. That's what it is. It's weird, but it's not scary or like crazy or silly. It's weird. It's different. It talks to the camera by themselves, It's funny to watch from the outside. It's got to be funny. Like I've done some where I shoot a recording of me recording, and it's funny because like I mess up and I start over, and it's like there's no one around, and I'm like cursing myself, and people watch that, they crack up because it just looks funny and it feels funny.
It's a weird sensation. It's like looking into a mirror, but you get the reflection like hours later.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
But thankfully it comes out really good usually after you're all done and clean it all up,
Oh,
it's like a nice shave.
Well, at least if you know what you're doing, it does.
Yeah, I guess so.
If it doesn't, you need to reevaluate something along the pipeline.
Are you ever satisfied with the work you do?
I have an in between. I know a lot of people think they're never satisfied. I am and I'm not. At the moment, usually I'm pretty happy with it and I'm comfortable enough putting it out there. And then a lot of times I'll look back and be like, what the hell are you doing? That's more what I get when I look back. But because you're always getting better, so that you hopefully can always look back and be like, oh, I could have done that better. But in the moment, like I don't beat myself up too much. And actually, to be honest with you, that was another reason I started YouTube. Not the main reason, but another reason was I'm so picky and like perfectionistic. Like I'm very neat and organized in every way. Like I just like things like perfect. And I get that when I'm doing work for clients and I want to be as best I can be because I'm handing them a product that they're paying me for. But sometimes you just have to move past, like sometimes I spend way too much time and I'm then diluting the amount of money I'm making for that time period for a project that they would never know that sound was like adjusted by this much, but I sit there and do it. And YouTube was a way for me to like set a deadline and have to get something out there, and whether it's perfect or not. And that's helped me a lot. It really has. And that was one of the a small reason why I started it. But very important to me personally, that I needed to figure out how to kind of get through things a little quicker. If I wanted to grow, spending that extra time is good, but not good. You have to draw a line, and being too perfect is a problem. So it can be a problem.
Well, I want to throw a candy to the gearheads that are listening to this because for as much as we like to hear about people's stories, business, and all of that, and a little bit now about YouTube stardom, people love to hear, what camera do you use?
Yeah, let's talk gear. I can do that.
And you said that you started with a Canon T3i when you were still playing baseball. How did your gear choices evolve through the time?
You want exactly the cameras that I went through?
No, you can skip, or I don't know. It's up to you.
It's not that many. It's more recently that I still have, so it's not like it was this huge. I guess it isn't evolve. Yeah, definitely evolving. So I started with the T3i, and I shot some things on that I was actually really happy with looking back. I'm like, how did I do that? I don't know because I tried to pull out even like you might even be able to. I have a 5D Mark III sitting up there that I use mostly for stills if needed nowadays. But I've tried to shoot video on that fairly recently, and I don't know what I'm doing with that camera anymore. It looks terrible. Like I'm like, how did I make that look so good? And that's a good camera. That's made some really nice things in this world, and people have used it plenty. And now I can't even make it look good because I'm so used to like 4K and like having peaking, and like it's too old for me. It's crazy. It's so stupid, but it's just like outdated for me to use now with my like how quickly I like to work. So unless I'm going to set that up with an external monitor and all this and I need an HD shot instead of 4K, which I barely shoot anything in anymore. It just sits on the shelf, but it really does come in handy for stills. I still like it for stills. and then I made the move to I'm trying to ask myself at the same time why I made this move. But I made the move to a cinema camera, and that was the FS7, which took me months to make a decision on. I was researching everything. So that's really where I started becoming I don't want to say a gear nut, but gear knowledgeable, because I was like, I'm not going to spend 10 grand and not know what I'm spending it on. So I started looking into everything, and I still think to this day, even though I've had it almost a few years now, it's still the best bang for your buck camera out there. It really is. I think cinema camera, we're talking. That's my opinion. But to have internal NDs and XLRs and 180 frames at 1080, 4K 60, the preamps are great, which I've never had a problem. I use them all the time, so I go right into camera. The internal recording I enjoy. I don't ever have to go externally unless I want to. It can be on your shoulder. You can put it on a rig. You can put it on. It's just, if it was a little smaller and could get on like a smaller Ronin, it'd be even the ultimate. And I have the FS5 for that now, but I'm not happy with the FS5. We'll get into that in a second. So I think personally, bang for your buck, I think it's the best all around camera. I just don't. If you want to talk colors, they're not the best in the world. You have to know what you're doing with them, and you always have to do something to make it look good, which sucks.
Yeah. I don't own an FS7, but one of my biggest clients does. I've been working with it for years, and I always have to cut it with GH5 and GH4 footage.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, like, the Sony's shooting in a log profile. The GH5 and the GH4 are just 8-bit, baked in, no log, and the color out of those is so much better. It takes so much work. I just find it weird that I have to tweak the Sony to match them instead of the other way around. That's what bothers me.
That is the worst part. It's not that it really can produce nice stuff, especially in light.
But it takes a lot of work to pull it out.
It takes a lot of work. I'm used to it at this point, but it was a lot of work at first. But that's so, if we want to put colors aside, if that's why you're shaking your head, Felipe.
No.
If we put colors aside, I do think dollar for dollar, it's one of the most powerful cameras out there still.
I enjoy the form factor a lot.
You mentioned all the great stuff of FS7, like, and the variable ND from the FS7 is just really, really good. And I completely agree. I don't agree with the pricing though.
Okay.
I think there are the way it records internally.
The pricing for it today, or the pricing at the time it came out, because it's pretty old now.
Both.
Yeah,
because you have the FS7 II now, right? I would say for sure it's a great camera. But the thing is, how much would it cost for you to get just the body today? Like 7,000, right?
The new one, the FS7 II?
Yeah.
It's probably 8, I think 8 or 9 even.
Yeah.
The old one is probably 7 now, because it was 8 when I bought it originally.
So if I would tell myself today, I have 10 grand to change the camera and get a cinema camera. Let's be very specific. I have 10 grand and I want to get a cinema camera. I don't want to have a DSLR form factor at all. I would be looking a lot at the Blackmagic Ursa Mini, for example.
I hate Blackmagic. We're gonna fight for the rest of this podcast if we keep talking about this.
For example, that I was working with the Blackmagic Ursa Mini, the first one, and of course ND was missing there, so it's already like a very big thing. It's not great in low light, but taking some words from Curtis in the previous episode.
Neither is the FS7 though.
Yeah,
so
like how many times are you shooting in the dark? So so it's.
But that's why you complement it with the A7S too.
Yeah.
Or lights.
Or lights.
Yes, lights are a good thing to have, you know. I don't know, for the price, like the Blackmagic Ursa Mini, you're gonna spend $2,500, or 3,000. I don't remember exactly the price right now. So that for me, I find it super difficult to justify the price of the FS7. And then there is another thing that is not FS7 is Sony that I don't like, is the way they deal with files, codecs, and metadata.
Yeah,
those
I'm
things
not a fan of that part either.
Those things are just like give me a one file that is a video file that can be read, and it has all the metadata built into the file. Don't give me like 100 different files. That's my biggest beef with Sony. Now, I am a Sony guy. I was shooting with Sony before I moved to have an in-house GH5. So it's just out of experience. I really don't like shooting with Sony, and it happens very often that a shooter with a Sony camera somewhere, and Anthony, if you tell me that you do this, please don't tell me that you do this, that goes drilling down inside the AVC HD bundle and looks for the MTS file and just sends that to the editor. That's when I'm pulling my hair out.
No, I send everything.
Yeah, so should everyone. Back up the whole memory card and send that whole thing to the editor.
Yeah, the cameras don't write these files for no reason.
Yeah, right.
They exist for a reason, but you got to bundle them together and send that whole thing.
Do you like the color of Sony cameras?
I do and don't at times. There's plenty of LUTs I use when shooting log. I don't shoot log a lot actually, but there's plenty of LUTs that I like in log that I really enjoy, and they're not like, I wouldn't call them natural colors, but like more cinematic styles that I really like. I do shoot in a custom profile quite a bit.
What would you call cinematic? How would you describe cinematic?
I would call cinematic anything that's not like naturally what you see with your eye.
So I mean, not
you
too
could style
contrasty,
it.
you mean?
Hyper real?
No, it could be anything that's stylized. I think I should say stylized, not cinematic. We don't need to talk about movies. I'm just saying stylized wise. Like, you can style it however you want and call it whatever you want, but if it's not like your natural colors and look like that you're seeing with your eyes on an everyday basis, I'm saying those type of looks, LUTs, like anything you want to put on it to make it look different and stylize it. I like certain ones that I can find.
If I could throw a wrench in that, just because we've talked about this cinematic thing a bunch in a bunch of different episodes. A lot of the movies I watch, the skin tones are natural, or very natural looking. So it's just the cinematic becomes this very nebulous thing that's hard to define.
It's very hard to define.
Because on the one hand, movies are hyper real and hyper stylized, but at the same time, oftentimes like the skin tones are extremely natural looking, or they use natural light. So I understand your trepidation. Do I call it cinematic or stylized, or what is it?
I think cinematic is probably more how you light stuff and how you shoot it more than the actual colors. But like, if we're going to refer to colors, then like, they get more contrasty or they get less contrasty. And then there's a shift in some tones somewhere, maybe if it's not the skins, it's the oranges in the background or something, there's always, I'm just saying, if it's not just like I shoot in a very custom like look that's supposed to, like you'd see with your eye, and when I do a lot of corporate stuff, that's what it ends up being. It's not crazy. Like, they just want to see and hear what they need to hear. They don't need to see all this crazy style. So when I say cinematic, maybe that's more what I'm referring to. But yeah, it's very hard to, like, there's no definition for this thing. We could go back and forth on this all day. And I do less of that than I'd like to, because again, with so many corporate clients. So with Sony, I get a lot of those stylized looks that I like. But I shoot more so not so stylized, right? And I have a custom like hyper gamma setting with all like there's so many settings in that camera that I've gotten to pretty much what I like. Only I always have to push the reds a little bit because it's just too green for me. So I push that a little bit, and it's usually pretty good. Maybe I even pull down the warmth a little bit sometimes. So it's just this weird, but at least I know what it is now. I kind of can make that adjustment, and I'm good. So in daylight, like, I mean, I guess this should go for any camera, but I've shot some scenic stuff that I've done for documentary where I'm shooting literally just B-roll like of flowers or just the city, and I get some beautiful shots out of that camera, and I didn't touch them. And I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was really... So it can produce nice things. It is more finicky. You have to know where and when you can get those. And Blackmagic produces beautiful colors. I agree with that. I just hate their menus. It's weird that I would say that as a Sony guy, right? I hate it. I don't like the way their cameras operate. I don't like it.
I find it the best UI in the cameras, in all of them.
I can't stand it. I like old school. Wow. Like I like the Odyssey 7Q over the Atomos structure, although I'm getting more used to Atomos stuff, but like I just like old school, like I don't need all this fanciness, right? I just need the words. Give me the words and let me scroll to it and touch it. That's all I need. So, but that's just my old school thinking. I do like Red's UI. So like, and that's more new. That's more
Red is nice.
Yeah,
Red is nice because it gives you all the settings that are relevant to you, right? Like shutter speed,
right
shutter angle, and etc. And you can tap on them and change right there, and it's very, very intuitive in a lot of ways. But there is a shortcoming for me on Red cameras, and I still can't believe that Red doesn't put waveform on those cameras. It puts a histogram, but doesn't put a waveform, and personally, I love using a waveform to check my exposure. I rely a lot on it. I use a color checker. And that's the one shortcoming for me for Red cameras for such an expensive camera. But now you have 2 Red cameras, right? Do you still have the Raven?
I don't still have the Raven. I just sold it.
Okay.
I sold it in August, but I have something new.
Okay.
Which I haven't disposed of or released yet, but I do have another one. So I got rid of the Raven and I've upgraded. I'm sure you could guess if.
Oh wow! Really?
If I didn't go as big. I didn't go as big as a weapon again, so I just needed a little push from the Raven to get some better low light. Let's put it that way.
Ooh, I know which one it is then.
So I'll be discussing that very soon this month on my channel. But
So
as far as the waveforms, yeah, exactly. As far as the waveforms, I'm more of a false color guy, and they have the geoscopes and things like that I can use, so I don't have a problem with that.
And those are the Red itself has that, the false color?
It has false color.
Because I use that on the Flame, on the Ninja Flame, and
nice.
I love false color for exposure. To me,
I love
it's
false color,
by far my favorite exposure tool.
I just could see everything. I understand a waveform and how it works, but it's like you could see so much more with false color. You could like literally see exactly what's not.
I'm trying to use it more now, actually, because now I
you
have
can
this
tell one stripe of light on the wall in the background. You can tell exactly what its exposure level is. You can see it in 3D
I love it.
space.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really enjoy false color, so that works for me. So I haven't had that issue.
Well, next time I shoot with Red and GH5, I'm gonna use the false color then there.
And the great part, even with the histogram, and I don't love histograms either, but the way they have it set up with the goalposts and the stoplights, and knowing when you're completely overexposed and you're not going to be able to get that back, that's extremely helpful. So like I'll use it for that to see if I'm peaking in any of the colors that like I've lost it. So like I can just then pull that down and refigure out my exposure. So
would you use that instead of zebras?
Yeah, I barely use zebras. I mean, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I don't use zebras on a Red. I use zebras on Sonys all the time.
Sure. Yeah, the red gives you so much latitude that, like you're saying, on the histogram, if it's not completely clipped, you have it. So.
Yeah, so as long as it's within the posts, you're good to go. So you can always fix it in post per se, right? I mean, of course, we want to get it right when we can.
You can never fix it in post.
Well, that's what's great about the exposure in Reds. That if you shoot it, you can move it. I mean, just raw in general, right? I would never shoot like that on Sony. I'd have to get it right because it's not going to come back. I'm not saying I'm lazy, but like when you're on the move and with a Red, you have a lot more latitude. So it's I'm comfortable with the histogram when I'm on the move, as opposed to I would never be comfortable with that with on like a Sony or any other camera that's not raw.
Okay, I have two questions.
Yep.
How the not the worst part, but I think the difficult part for a lot of people coming from a DSLR background and going to a cinema camera background, mainly if they go to Red, is the weight of the camera. So you're used to run and gun, and of course you can run and gun with the Red, but you need to be a little bit fitter to be carrying that camera around, and as it's quite heavy. Do you still use it for run and gun situations, the Red, or do you go for the FS7 and the FS5 for that?
It depends if I need audio or not. I won't run something with a Red that I need to go internally with audio. I actually have the Red Volt, that's what it's called, coming as well, which is a box about this big that goes on the back and has its own preamps. So now the camera's gonna get twice as heavy. But if I do need to run audio internally, I would use that now. But that probably wouldn't be run and gun. That would be more of a setup on a rig or whatever. but I might not have to record externally, which can be helpful too, depending on the setup. But usually if you're set up like that, you're going to run it externally anyways. So it's like, it's just another option. It has a bunch of other things too. That's not the only reason I got it.
If you're a one-man band, more or less, what situation is it where you'd have to run it internally? Like, what would the difference be? Why couldn't you just record it externally and sync it later if you're editing it, if you're,
it's more setup on the front end than the back end. Like, I don't mind syncing and doing it on the back end, but like now setting up if you're doing it by yourself, now setting up a recorder and making sure they're both running and syncing, like, whereas I could otherwise just plug into the camera and hit record. I don't have to clap it off or anything. It just becomes a quicker run and gun.
Efficiency.
Like, is efficiency on the shoot. It has nothing to do with like external or in post. If I need to sync, I sync. That's not a problem. It takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And earlier on, you said that you decided to purchase the Red to put yourself and your company on where you want to be in terms of what type of service, I guess, your quality of service that you want to deliver. Can you explain a little bit the thought process of that and where you are at with that goal?
Yeah, of course. Like, as far as getting, I didn't even finish my
story
line of cameras. Yeah, we got to the 5D. So let me do that, because then I'll get to the Red and answer your question. So we went T3i, 5D Mark III, and then I was like, I want to move into the cinema camera world, right? And that decision was more so, like you're saying, where I want to be. It wasn't a complete necessity at the time. But again, I was very lucky with baseball, and I had the money to do so. So I was like, let me do it now and learn and get to that point quicker than trying to rent it out only when I have the jobs. Like, I just didn't feel like I could learn efficiently at all that way. I just felt like I would never get there. It was a job here and there, if I got it, that needed a camera that I could rent at that level. I was like, I'll never get there. Like, let me just use it on every shoot, no matter what they're paying me, and I'll make the money. That camera's paid for itself 100 times. Like, it's been so good to me. So that worked in that way as far as investment. But that was my decision. It wasn't. So I don't know if I'm a good example to be like, you need to work up to it. I was lucky enough to be able to just go get it, and I did. And I thought that would help me get where I want to be quicker, and I think it has. So I don't want to say go buy it,
But how has it helped you get where you want quicker? Because, like, it's not like, say you have an FS7. If I went to a client and I said, "Whoa, I can shoot the GH5 or an FS7," they have no idea what that means.
So I guess for client wise, it hasn't gotten me anywhere different, I should say. It's gotten me where I want to be. I hate shooting with DSLRs. I want to shoot with cinema cameras only. I'm just that's just what I like.
Because you're able to achieve the aesthetic you want to.
The aesthetic, I don't like not being able to get audio into the camera if I need it. Just the options. There's just so many more options, and even like dynamic range and stuff gets better. I mean, they are getting better in the smaller cameras, obviously, as we go. But I like all the bells and whistles. So that's how I like to operate. I like to have the options. I don't want to be pigeonholed. Although these tiny DSLRs and mirrorless shoot really, really, really good stuff. I'm not taking anything away from them. I just like to operate on a cinema camera level. So that's just a personal preference. I don't have clients that 100% require that. I could show up with the smaller cameras. I will say, showing up with bigger cameras and crazy setups, even though I didn't need them, have opened eyes, and they've brought me back over and over, because thinking I'm doing a really high-end job when I could have done the same thing with DSLR, 100%. But they're always, when I do a lot of these corporate shoots, they're always like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize this was such a setup," just because of the size of the cameras, and I bring 2 of them, and it's like this monster setup already, which I like to operate that way. If I'm gonna go out for the day and charge someone what I'm charging them, I'm gonna show up and make it at least look like I am earning that money. I don't want to go and shoot something for $300 a day. Like, I'd rather shoot once a week at $1,200 or $1,500 a day than 4 times or 5 times a week at $300 a day.
It's like some movies that I've watched, like arriving at a client meeting with a BMW when you can't even afford it. So at least to put yourself in that level that they.
Well, look what realtors always show up in nice cars, right? They're probably leasing those. They probably do well, but they're always, it's a show. It's a little bit of a game. It's a show, and I can play that one, thankfully, and I played that early, and I think it's helped me. So it may not have.
It's actually very good that you actually mentioned this thing about the size of the camera, because in a previous episode we were talking about first of all, does it matter the equipment that you're using? I mean, as long as you know the limitations of the equipment and things like that, yeah, it shouldn't matter the equipment that you're using. It shouldn't matter what the camera that you're using
Right.
for most of the things. I mean, if you're going to shoot a feature film and you're working with a studio, they probably will want to be shooting on an Arri or on a Red camera. They are not going to be probably shooting on the SLRs, of course, if you have Universal doing a feature film. But on the other hand, I think I also had the same experience that you had, that if you have a bigger setup, it opens eyes and people say, oh, yeah, we're really getting our money's worth.
Yeah, he must be for real. Yeah.
Yeah, and for example, in my case, I'm not charging day rates or hourly rates anymore. I'm at the very minimum, I'm trying to charge on a project basis. So
Okay.
I really try to, once a client comes to me and they're asking for things, and I try as much as possible asking questions. So for them to realize what are the benefits that video production will bring to their business. Is it something that's going to increase your revenue? Is it something that... So I'm trying to get to the point that I'm working on a value model instead of an hourly rate. Because
Sure.
in the end, if you're efficient, you get punished and you get paid less because you were efficient. So
Right.
getting paid per hour is not so cool.
Okay.
How do you work today when you're going with your clients and they want to hire you for like a corporate gig? Do you do an hourly day rate and things like that?
Yeah, I mostly do day rates at this point. They're half day rates are very rare, unless someone literally needs me for something that I could show up with a DSLR or something on my shoulder and be in and out in a couple hours. Maybe I'll charge a half day rate, but usually I'm doing full day rates. And then on the post-production side, that's on the shooting side. On the post-production side, I project, or I estimate and give them quotes based on days, how many days it would take to edit. And I do keep track hourly, especially because I'm outsourcing the editing. So I can't not pay. I can't say, I don't want to hire somebody and say, hey, you need to do this job. Excuse me. You need to do this job in this amount of time. This is what can you get it done this amount of time? This is all we have. I want to work with them, and if changes come back, I want to pay them for that. So I'm going to charge the client for that. So I'm working with, though, when I do these corporate jobs, I thankfully have like two of my clients are billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. So they're not worried about another hour or two. So I'm going to charge them for that. So it can change depending on who you're working with, right? Like excuse me, I'm sorry right now. I need to get a glass of water here in a second. But yeah, it does depend on who you're working with. I have definitely done project rates where like I'll shoot a music video and they're like, hey, we have $2,000, and it's like, all right, I can do that. That has definitely happened. But when I do corporate stuff, I'm charging day rates and even hourly if we go over, because they have the money for that, and they'll keep coming back to you. Those are the most particular clients because they know what they need, they know what they want, and if it gets a little bit off, they'll make you change it, and I'm going to charge them for that because they need they aren't scared to ask that, so I'm not scared to charge it.
Version 23.
Yeah. So I mean, I have done the project rates, but overall it's based on days. So like if I'm budgeting out a bigger project and I need a gaffer and I need a sound guy and I need 2 other shooters and I need a PA, I am basing them all on, like, let's say 1 day of production. I'm budgeting it on 1 day per person. And then if we have to go another day, that all is going to double. Like I can't do a project rate sometimes because they're not sure how many days it might take. So I have to budget it as a day rate. I can't budget it as a project rate. But then in the end, I could say, this is going to be this much. And I could be nice enough to be like, hey, it's going to be this much. But I just don't trust anybody with edits. I don't trust these bigger clients with edits, because they need to get what they want out of it. And if it takes more time, I'm going to charge them for it. And if I'm efficient, and like you said, if I'm efficient, and I'm making them spend less, I feel good about that. And I hope that they come back to me for that. I'm not trying to overcharge them. I'm just trying to charge them for what work I'm doing. So I don't want to charge someone for me being able to pound it out in an hour and charge them a day rate. But then I also don't want to be working at 3 days and only charging them for one. So I'm going to charge what it is. Like, that's just how mentally that works for me. And I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. On the project side, you can also, of course, always spend. When I say project side, there is a description of what the project consists of. For example, if I do a project to someone, on the description of the project says, the value for this project includes a 2-day shoot with this many people, and so on. I'm just
if it goes over,
if it goes over, there is a clause for that, and normally it doesn't go over in the clients that I had. But yeah, of course, if it would go, is like, look, we are hired for those 2 days. If you want a third day or fourth day, we need to make another contract. And I try to make it as another contract because you have immediate occurrence of expenses as a business. And in my case, I always ask for a 50% down payment before we start the project. So if they're gonna increase by another day, I'm incurring more expenses on my side, and I'm not getting that 50% increase if we're just adding to the current project. So I just try to make another contract. Okay, you want more days? It's another contract. It's another 50% down payment, and so on and so forth. I think in our industry, it's very easy for us to go out of business because of one bad client or one bad deal or something like that. That suddenly, for example, it happened to me that I gave a very nice, very generous discount to someone. And then in the middle of the project, they backed off. And I actually only got my expenses paid. I didn't get any of my work paid at all. And it was 3 days of work, not counting the post-production.
I thankfully have never encountered that. With new clients, I always do the 50% upfront. With my corporate clients, I don't do anything. I've incurred expenses in the thousands, 30, right? up to like 10,000, where I'm not getting paid for 2 months.
2 months, wow.
Yeah, I mean, some of these corporate companies, these monster corporate companies, take 30 to 90 days to pay.
Yeah.
But I work with them so often. There's no way, if I tried to write a contract and get 50, I would never get the money before we shot. Ever. Like, they just don't cut checks that quick.
Oh, no, yeah, the bigger one that I have, I also don't get.
Yeah.
When you guys say that you're incurring expenses before starting a project or before getting paid, what expenses are you referring to? Because for me, I don't really ever have any expenses until I'm editing, and it's just hard drive storage.
If you have a crew, you're incurring expenses.
Travel, crew.
Yeah.
I don't wait to pay my crew either. I don't wait till I get the check to pay my crew. I pay them right away.
Yeah, me
so
too.
Yeah. I could be dishing out $6,000 in crew before I get paid, and travel, and I'm putting them up, I'm paying for them. So it builds up quick. Those are the expenses. It's pretty much crew, and if travel or food or anything that you're putting up.
Yeah, and depending on where you are with your business, if you're right in the beginning, one of those deals can really break you.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you've been years there and you've done your due diligence with finances and you have money saved up and things like that, probably nothing bad is going to happen to you if you have just to wait a few months to get paid. But if you're just starting a business, if you're in your first 2-3 years, suddenly you get a big customer and you're like, oh great, my first big client, it's going to be like a $20,000 budget, but they're only going to pay in 2 months from now. And from those $20,000, at least half of that is expenses with equipment, with crew, and etc. It really can put you in a bad position if something bad happens. For example, them canceling halfway or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I've never experienced a bad one, so I try to stay away from those.
I guess this was an amazing conversation, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your day, out of your YouTube and your business schedule. How can people connect with you and find you online?
Of course, like I mentioned earlier, Jersey Filmmaker everywhere. JerseyFilmmaker.com, at Jersey Filmmaker on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and it's the Jersey Filmmaker YouTube channel as well. So anything you can look up under Jersey Filmmaker, you'll find me somewhere.
Anything else that you would like to say before we finish?
No, I appreciate you guys having me, and keep doing what you're doing, man. This is exactly how I got going, and I'm not that. You're not that far behind me. I only started the podcasting, which let me mention the podcast as well. It's the I Filmmaker podcast that I do with Ariel Martinez. He lives in Miami. I'm here in Jersey, but we do that usually once a week. That is actually less strict than I try to be with my YouTube channel. We do it whenever we're available. We do them live as well on YouTube. So you can go follow us on YouTube, iFilmmaker, and you'll get an alert when we're live. So you actually get to see the conversation live, and you can chat with us and ask questions. And we like to interact with whoever's watching. It helps steer the conversation quite well. So you can check that out. iFilmmaker.tv is a brand new website we just launched last week. And we're trying to, and maybe we could talk to you guys about that too. We are trying to bring on collaborators per se, and have people post their content on our site so that people can come to one place and find all this different stuff. So we're working on that. I think we're calling them contributors instead of collaborators, contributors, right? So anyone that's interested in that, go take a look at ifilmmaker.tv. You could send us an email. We're still trying to figure out exactly how that's going to work. So a little bit of a process, but come along for the process with us and talk to us. And we'll work it all out. But yeah.
And as always, guys, if you haven't checked us out on iTunes Podcast, we're there. We're on Spotify. Of course, we are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. And it would be a really big help if you can just subscribe, click the bell, share with your friends, post comments. We really would love to hear from you. And I guess that's it. Thank you, guys, and have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Bye.